We're a very, very niche NGO. We work with village chickens. And people always ask, why village chickens? The answer is, if you're trying to really help the poorest of the poor in rural areas across Asia, Africa, the Pacific, chickens are their currency. They call chickens petty cash on legs. We were set up because a guy by the name of Dr. John Copland, who worked with the Australian Centre for International Agricultural Research, realised that chickens were the livestock of the poor. So then he said, well, what's stopping chickens from being used? They die all the time of this disease called Newcastle disease. The vet school at University of Queensland developed a thermotolerant vaccine. He funded research work in Mozambique to teach the Mozambican government to make the vaccine, and then to set up a supply chain into rural areas, setting up a system of training community vaccinators and using those community vaccinators to sell the vaccine, which is where I came in. And at that time, I realised this was one of the few projects I'd actually ever worked on that had immediate tangible benefits for poor rural families. Literally. It helps almost every aspect of their lives. For us as an organisation, ensuring that our policies and our guidelines and our practices lead to honest and open and transparent communication in itself leads to better implementation. Because if you practice honest and open communication, people will give you honest feedback. If you have that feedback, you're going to continually improve what you do and you're going to benefit a lot more people. We have a strategic plan, 2017 to 2021. From that, we prepare annual plans. From our annual plans, we have our programs. From our programs, we do blogs, website posts, stories for the annual reports, Facebook messages. Anything that we report on needs to feed back in at the end of the day to our strategic plan. So we have guidelines in place for imaging and messaging, a communication strategy. We have a monthly communications plan where we're looking at what we should be posting and when. We have a fairly strict process about ensuring that if a story is written about someone or about a program, that they have to approve that before it comes through for final approval. Because we are a small organisation, I do sign off on all communications. It just ensures that we do have a consistency and quality of communication. One of the best things we ever did was Eliza and myself went to Melbourne for the Images and Decision Making workshop. At the end of the day, it is a little bit of common sense, but it's also putting yourself in the shoes of the person you're taking a photo of. You know, if you're using this image, what does that mean to that family to see this particular image being used for fundraising? And if it's not an image that they would be proud of, we shouldn't be using it. We will only use positive images that people would be happy to have used in fundraising messages. That's our policy. We do vet our photos. A project that we were just doing in Mozambique was in an area that's got high rates of HIV, and our team took quite a few photos in the field. 9/10 of those photos we couldn't use. They just weren't. They were great photos, but they just weren't positive images. We don't want to say, these poor people, they need your help. I think that's really demeaning. It's about, look at what happens when people are allowed to transform their own lives. We have a regular weekly Skype meeting with our team, and as part of that Skype meeting we run a little bit of training on different issues. We've certainly had a lot of debate about at taking images from the field and getting signatures for photos, and whether getting a signature from somebody is necessarily the most appropriate way to get approval, because sometimes governments make people sign things. So getting a signature can be quite scary, and it can be quite confronting when that's exactly the opposite of what we're trying to achieve. So our number one intent is to ensure that the respect is there for the person that the photo is taken from, and the secondary step is the signature, whether it be a signature or whether it be a consent that's filmed or whether it is a consent that's noted. It's all about what that individual is most comfortable with instead of what we're most comfortable with. So this is Kate Johanna, and we decided that one of the ways to get good images from the field was to have a photography competition. And we had to put quite strict guidelines on the photography competition to make sure that it was meeting with our images and messages guidelines, and also that we were getting appropriate consent from people and ensuring that those people were getting information back. So Kate is amazing. The photographer Richard Nyoni is from her village. He took the photograph, he got the consent. We made sure that she got copies of this annual report and of some postcards we did with her image on the front, and she was very happy to receive those documents back. So that we do try wherever possible to give the photos back to the families that we've taken them of. People are happy for you to use their image when they're getting some benefit from it, and when they can see that it is a positive image. We normally get those images from our field officers, or if we do field visits ourselves, we'll take photos. We've got a server that's backed up daily, so we've got a photo library on that server. We need to be really careful about age of images, because really any image that's sort of more than 3 to 5 years old probably should be archived and moved on, so things are stored in date order. When we collect data, we have to make sure that we've got the consent to use that image, so that has to be stored with the photo so that it's easy to find. We've worked with a lot of NGOs to train their staff in Newcastle disease vaccine process. And so on our website, we have a lot of free materials, how to train a community vaccinator, how to look after the backyard chickens once they've been vaccinated. So we're always sharing information in that way with other NGOs. We do try and, where possible, when we're working in the field, work in the most common language, because then those materials are of way more value. And we try and use pictures as much as possible. So when the community vaccinators are going into the field, they get given a flip chart, and the flip chart is just big photos with maybe a few small letters underneath in local language. So they're talking to the photo more than they're talking to the words to explain what Newcastle disease is, what it does to your chickens, and et cetera, et cetera.